Good morning, church. How's it going? Awesome. How are you? Good. My name is Connor. I lead a Bible study group here. We meet on Thursdays for young adults. So, whether you're 20 or 30, we meet at 7 on Thursdays. If any of you guys are interested in that, feel free to reach out to me or John or any of the pastors. But today's reading, we're in Titus chapter 3, verses 12 through 15. When I send Artemas or Tychicus to you, do your best to come to me at Nicopolis, for I have decided to spend the winter there. Do your best to speed Zenas the lawyer and Apollos on their way. See that they lack nothing. And let our people learn to devote themselves to good works, so as to help cases of urgent need and not be unfruitful. All who are with me send greetings to you. Greet those who love us in the faith. Grace be with you all.
Thank you, Connor. Man, I'm so grateful we've got some young adults in our church that's pursuing Jesus. Can we give it up for Connor and his group again, man? Praise the Lord. It's always a trying time sometimes in life. Well, we're ending our series in the book of Titus in regards to the church that works. And so we've been going through like different marks of a healthy church, whether it's biblical authority, biblical leadership, sound doctrine, looking at intergenerational mentoring, lots of different things that Paul has brought up. But the last little portion of this book, he mentions all of these names. And so today we're really focusing on radical collaboration. If you're going to reach the island of Crete, if you're going to reach really to the furthest ends of the earth, for Paul, thinking about even into the ends of the Roman Empire, what it's going to take is radical collaboration among churches and also among Christians. And so today I've got with me two great guys, right? Pastor Brody, Pastor John. We're missing Pastor Matt. I'll tell you what, right? He's one of the best. You sent me a text just yesterday saying that he was praying for us, and we need it, don't we? We really need it. So grateful for him. But as we jump into this passage, one thing that we notice is that Paul doesn't talk just about numbers. Hey, this is what's been going on within kind of the global church. He mentions names. And so what I really want to focus in on right out of the gate, John, this has been a conversation we and also amongst the rest of the staff have talked about, that we want to be a church that doesn't just count numbers, we want to count names. And so what does that look like here in the church or just from your perspective as you've been doing ministry with us?
Yeah, actually, I thought we were singing this morning, so I was practicing. So now I know what we're doing. I got another plan.
That's right.
No, when we think about counting names and not numbers, and the idea is that it's not just about gathering in large numbers of people to have a certain number on a chart or a list, but every person is created in God's image, has purpose and value, and then we recognize those that have trusted and placed their faith in Jesus Christ. They are now gifted for the service of ministry. And so when we think about what that means, the names are important. Now, I can't promise to say I've got everybody's name down, and I'm sure nobody in here has that necessarily, but we're trying to make sure that that is an important aspect, that we know people by name, so that way when we're praying for individuals, and that's what we do as a staff, is we have the directory of those that are here, and so we're able to look through, sometimes with pictures, sometimes it's just with the name, but we're able to pray over individuals by who they are, their family unit, what that looks like. And because it's such an important part, because our names matter, it's part of who we are and how we're identified.
Yeah, so in the very first verse, we see that Paul is talking about individuals that are being sent to him, but also he's sending as well. Why is that an important aspect of the local church, to be receiving and sending folks on mission?
Yeah, well, we see sending and receiving at the very heart of God in Scripture. And so we see it all throughout Scripture, in the New Testament church, and even the Old Testament with prophets like Jonah, who were sent to go to cities to bring the gospel forth in different nations throughout the world. And so the local church really is a sending agent. We are in the business of sending and receiving. And so, when I think about this, my mind goes to Fort Collins, Colorado. We're gonna, as a youth, we kind of been talking about that. We're going this summer, but really that church, I just want to share briefly that story. So if you know a church called Buck Run Baptist Church in Frankfort, Kentucky, about 10 years ago, They had a pastor on staff named Zach Thurman and his wife, Jennifer Thurman. They felt called to go to Colorado to plant a very hard context, and they raised him up as a leader. They laid hands on him, prayed over him, and they sent him out, and they supported him through sending teams and money and finances. And ever since then, it's just begun to flourish. And what I love about Overland is that they are a multiplying church. So they're actually planting their third church plant in 10 years. And so they are committed to reaching these neighborhoods. And as we even got to go and drive through just thousands of houses, and he would say there's thousands of houses here and no local church that believes in the gospel. And so they're committed to reaching people in that area. And it really is, it's just cool to see and cool to be a part of. We want to go and support them, but also learn as well.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about it all throughout scriptures, it's about sending. I mean, the Great Commission is about us making disciples, and then it is also an aspect of going, wherever that might look like, however that might be. And so whether it's in Eastern Kentucky, we have a team that's going out soon that we'll be commissioning at the end of the service, but whether it's going to Eastern Kentucky or Colorado, or we're going internationally, or whether it's us going across the street, whether it's us engaging with our neighbors, or in our work setting, or whatever that might be. The idea of multiplication is a gospel reality. And when I think about it, the term that came to mind that I shared with the guys earlier was, I see it as we are called not to come and sit, but to come to be sent. And the idea is that we come for a moment knowing the expectation is that we are not always going to remain as it is, that there's this adding that takes place. And in seminary, one of the key phrases and words that we used was that we meet to part and part to meet. So the idea is that we are meeting for a moment and for a season, and we want to grow and edify and develop our faith and skills and the giftings that God has given us. But the concept is we're not always going to stay exactly the same, and there's an element of multiplication and movement that takes place. But there's always the encouragement that we know that Christ is coming back, and we know that even though that we are meeting to part, we are parting to meet, because we will be able to sing the praises of Jesus for all eternity, and that's worthy of celebration.
Yeah, that's right. Come on. Yeah, give it up. There you go. Come on, John.
Mic
that was
drop.
for you
Mic
too.
drop, right?
That was for you too, Brody. Yeah, that's right. No, it reminds me of the church that I grew up in, Corinth Baptist Church of London, Kentucky. We had a great pastor, Andrew Dyer, and there was a very gifted individual within our church. He was a UPS driver, but also he taught Sunday school. And any time that man walked into the room would change because they knew he loved them and they loved him in return. But Andrew started to see a call on his life to be not just a deacon, but potentially have an ability to teach, maybe even a giftedness of teaching. And he had found out from the association that there was a church in need. And so they ended up one Sunday morning bringing him in front of everybody, laying their hands on him, praying for him, telling him that he wasn't just going to go be a pastor of maybe a church 30 minutes or an hour away or 2 hours away. No, it was going to be like 10 minutes away. Now, there could be risk in that, right? A lot of times churches are like, oh, what now? What are we going to do? What if more people from our church leave? What kind of risk could take place? What's some of your thoughts in regards to that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to send people. And I think of Acts 20, when Paul was being sent, leaving the Ephesian elders, and he leaves in tears, and they grieve, and they kiss him on the cheek, and they're sobbing, right? Because they've developed this deep relationship with the Apostle Paul and in community, but they know that he has a mission, and he knew that in that moment, I may never come back to this place, but I have a mission to go forth. And that's the part of it that's hard, but it's also beautiful, because it's a high calling. And so it's hard to lose people in a way of not losing them, but sending them out and knowing, man, I may not rub shoulders with them all the time, but I know one day, as John said earlier, that we'll meet again, right? We'll meet again, and we have that hope. But it's difficult, and you have to acknowledge that. It's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about, is change hard for some people in here? Raise your hand. If change is hard, right, it is just a natural thing. Change is difficult, especially when we get really close bonded with individuals. I mean, when we're spending our lives with each other, we're praying for each other, we're celebrating with each other, we're also crying together. All of those things, they build a close-knit network, but it's really we got to be cautious that it doesn't become that holy huddle kind of concept that it's me, it's us four and no more.
That's
and
right.
It's this concept that we have to look out and say, what does that mean sometimes? And it can be challenging and because there are risks. And when I even think about it in the sense of like Sunday school, there's times that in a certain room, we run out of space. And so there's this element of launching a new group out of that group. Yeah. And that can even be really difficult because it's like, but these are the people I love. And it's like, you can still love them, but we want to be able to reach more folks. And we know that through that growth, through that expansion, through that multiplication, this is how the early church was called to live. And this is how we are called to live with the concept of that change, but it's the change with kingdom mindset.
That's right. In verse 13, we see, it says this, do your best to speed Zenas the lawyer and Apollos on their way and see that they lack nothing. So we don't want to just send people, whether it's across the street or even across the world, without supporting them and equipping them. What does that look like here at Simpsonville Baptist?
Yeah, I'll kind of share. I mean, part of the equipping.
He's ball hogging right now.
I know. Hey, Harold, what I want to
have alley-oop in a
we
second.
get to talk too.
What I wanted to say is whatever Brody's going to say.
Ask me a question, man. No.
You get an alley-oop later. That's
right. So I'll just say this. We do this in a lot of different facets. And to give an example, Sunday school is an element of that training and equipping. It's a part of our discipleship. But so are our midweek groups that meet on Wednesdays. And then this coming summer Sunday nights in June, starting next week, we have groups that are taking place. And so whether it's evangelism, whether it's learning how to facilitate groups, maybe it's learning how to live out your faith in a living way as they study through James, or it might be answering hard and difficult questions, maybe in an apologetic kind of way. All of those elements are about training. And so when we think about that on midweek groups in the past, but even the things that we're looking forward to in the future. So this coming fall, we'll have the preaching practicum.
That's right.
So those who feel a gifting or a desire or are curious on what it means to put together a sermon, to preach before others, to proclaim the gospel, share the hope of Christ, like that is going to be an element of training. And so we see this, whether it's in D groups, whether it's in home groups, whether it's going to be Sunday school or midweek or groups that meet throughout the week. These are all equipping and training opportunities in which it prepares us for the ministry that God calls us to. What would you like to say, Brody?
Man, that was good.
That was good. Yeah, Molly and I, when we talk about this as the Next Gen Ministries, is that our goal is to disciple families and disciple parents to be the primary discipler of your home. What that means is you're on the front lines, and we see your kids or students maybe a couple hours a week, but you all see them every single day. And so how can we come alongside you and equip you to answer the hard questions, to walk them through every season of life, to guide them towards the scriptures? That's one of our passions. And so we want to do that in the ways through midweek. Maybe it's a parent roundtable discussion that's coming up. But also, in another way, an exciting thing that's coming up is our internships that we're going to kind of roll out soon. So high school will have an opportunity, juniors and seniors, to do a co-op internship here at the church where we can build that foundation for practical ministry equipping, but also just gain some experience with spiritual disciplines and growing in that way.
This guy's good.
I said alley-oop, man.
Yeah,
alley-oop. Yeah. And but also that college summer internship as well that we haven't really talked about much yet, but we're excited. There's just a lot of things coming down the line that really it's just centered on this idea of how can we equip the saints for the work of ministry.
And so one thing we're going to be doing starting in August is in the foyer, we're going to try to have a Next Step Center that's going to have lots of different resources there. But if anyone's coming, like whether it's your first time or your 100th time here, all of us have a next step to take. Sometimes we've been a part of a group for maybe 3 years, 4 years, and we have that call, or maybe we have this desire that the Lord is starting to give to us, that you want to give it a shot, not only to attend a group, but to lead a group, and we're going to have different resources, different things like that for you. Part of the reason why we want to call it Next Steps is because it kind of counters the idea of Christian consumerism. In what ways have you seen that play a part that's really damaged the church, whether it's in the past or the present that you've seen?
Yeah, and I think that's an easy threat to get into in the American church. The way we've kind of wired our churches is it's come in, I'm going to sit, I'm just going to consume. What do you have for me? It's BK, have it your way, right? But you come in and there's no pouring out. There's no equipping, there's no taking a next step and getting involved. And what we're called to do is we're called to be active followers of Jesus, not just a church that consumes, but a church that produces, that goes out and that pours into others as well. And that's in all phases of life. It's as you go, it's in ministry, it's in the workplace, it's in different places. But the threat is to come, because it's easy, right? It's comfortable to sit in the chair and make this a Sunday habit, but what if it became an everyday habit? And what could the Lord do, right, through a church that is at work and moving in that way?
We see that even in the passage. It says Zenas the lawyer. And so it's not just ministry inside the walls, but it's outside. What might that look like, John, for you, even as you serve full-time at GE, right? What does that look like? And I'm sure a lot of other people, this would be very applicable for them as well in whatever career God has led them to participate in.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. You may have heard of the word bivocational or co-vocational, so that language might be there. And I think most of the folks know here, maybe not everybody, but I'm part-time here at the church, and then I have a full-time job in human resources. And so with that being kind of laid out, it's kind of interesting because the truth of it is we're not called to put on one hat in one place and a different hat in another. We are called to be followers of Christ, to be salt and light wherever we are. And so I don't really change the ministry outlook of what I do, whether I'm meeting here in the foyer or connecting with somebody for coffee to talk about what it means to lead a group or to get connected into a Sunday school class or to have a conversation about faith. That doesn't change who I am when I go to my other job at Appliance Park. I'm still available to be for praying with others, to talk about my faith. And most of the people I work with, almost everybody, they all know that I'm in ministry. And so there's times that folks will come up to me and maybe they're not a part of a church, or maybe they've kind of been distanced to the church for some reason, maybe a past hurt or something that's gone on. And so, but they'll come to me. And so I make myself available and make sure that people know who I am and where I'm at. And so I would just give that as an encouragement to you, that as we see it in the scriptures here, where we see a lawyer. One of my good buddies from the past that I used to minister a lot with, his name was Clint Elliott, and he's a lawyer. And so he always loved this passage. It was one of his favorites. He's like, even God can use lawyers. And I was like, yes, that's true. But the truth of it is, whether you're a lawyer or whether you work in a factory, whether you're a teacher, or you're a stay-at-home mom, or whether you work on a farm or whatever it might be, God can use you to minister to those that he's placed in your pathways, the crossroads of life, the people that you run into, wherever that might be, and to be in that mindset that we are sent people and we are called to minister wherever we are, whatever we're doing, and whatever our giftings are. And so just to want to encourage you, see yourself as a child of God who is sent with whatever your skill set you have, wherever you're placed.
Another person mentioned in the passage is Apollos. If you would, turn your Bible with us to Acts chapter 18. Acts 18, I don't think it's going to be on the screen. Maybe it is, who knows. But Acts 18, verse 24, okay? It says this is what we learned from him. Now a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was an eloquent man, competent in the scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in spirit, he spoke and taught accurately the things concerning Jesus, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue, but when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him aside and explained to him the way of God more accurately. And when he wished to cross to Achaia, the brothers encouraged him and wrote to the disciples to welcome him. When he arrived, he greatly helped those who through grace had believed, for he powerfully refuted the Jews in public, showing by the scriptures that the Christ was Jesus. What are some of the aspects that kind of stand out to you from that passage concerning Apollos?
Well, first of all, Priscilla and Aquila, that's a good band name, right? So someone use that, go for it. But there's also this idea that Apollos is not quite ready, right? And there's an equipping and a process. So it's comforting to know, hey, you don't have to have it all figured out. You're still doing something, right? And then they pull him aside and they train him and say, hey, here's what let's teach you about Jesus, and here's how you can share it. And then as he is growing and maturing in that, they bring him before the disciples and say, look at this guy, he's ready. And that's just the process that we all have to go through, right? No one's got it all put together. No one has all the right words to say at every moment. But what's cool about that, and this is something we see in Scripture, is that God does not call the equip, he equips the called. And so he will give you the abilities that you need in the moment. The Holy Spirit will work alongside you to train you up in the way, and you can, produce. And it's just a cool thing that we get to see.
Just to realize, like when we look at the scriptures too, I think about it in pride. Pride says, I've got it, I can take care of it, I don't need anything or anyone to help me. Self-reliance. We actually were talking about this in our Sunday school class today in the book of James. But when we think about that pride aspect, not being coachable and teachable and moldable is a prideful aspect. And we see clearly in the scriptures when we have that kind of pride, God distances himself from us. And it's not about, well, I've been in faith for longer than you, or I've done something longer than you. It's the concept of, God, I need you dependently every single day, every single aspect. And to have that and we have to model that, right? I take instructions from you guys all the time. You tell me what to do.
Getting ready to say.
Yeah.
So I see that smirk on your face.
I know.
I was like, man,
but
you throw us under the bus or something.
But Brody has every right to speak into my life. If he sees something that's off base or something, he has every right to come to me and say,
I've been waiting on him to do it.
You don't know what he said to me earlier. So, but the thing of it is it's just an encouragement that we're being molded and we're growing. It's part of our sanctification. And for us to be able to be like Apollos in that sense, it's being dependent and trusting those that are around us that are followers of Christ.
Yeah, that's good. That was good right there. Verse 14, what we see is that there is, let me read it for us. Let our people learn to devote themselves to good works so as to help cases of urgent need and not be unfruitful. I'm sure there was a list of different good works to be done on Crete and in other pockets where Paul was doing ministry. What does that look like for us as a church and in our community?
So many things. And that is one thing, and I know we can all say the same on staff. This church is involved in meeting needs in our community and really beyond our community. And one of the things that comes to mind is bus ministry. It's not necessarily like the most glorious thing, right? To get on a bus with middle school boys who kind of smell a little bit, right?
It's not the magic school bus.
It's not. No, Miss Frizzle is not there. But it's an amazing ministry, and it's really needed, and it's an urgent need. I mean, those boys and a few girls that come as well, that come to our Wednesday night midweek youth group, they love it, and they love the ministry, and they love coming, and you can see the Lord working in their hearts. There's one of them that even wants to explore baptism, right, and take that next step. And so just something that you don't necessarily see that at the end, but the bus ministry is a pivotal step in that process for them to come here and hear the gospel.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too, like when you were saying it, we've all talked about it, but it's hard to believe, but I've been here at the church for almost 1 year. So this weekend would be right at the mark where 2 weeks from now is when I began. And I know that when Megan and I were praying through and saying, God, where would you have us to serve next? Is this the location? Is this the place? Is this the people that you want us to link arms with to be in ministry? And one of the things we looked at was, we looked online on the newsletter. You guys seen the newsletter? So you could look through pages of the different ministries and activities taking place. We were able to listen online. We were able to see the things that were posted and listed online of ways to grow and develop your faith, ways to serve those that are in need. And it was all over the place. It was here locally. It was beyond here. And it's just really encouraging. So, and there's so many. There's no way of being able to list everything. But from backyard Bible clubs that people have led to those who have stepped up to say, "There's a new follower of Christ. I will mentor them and do that one-on-one or two-on-one, where it's really, really small, where we can have conversations." Those are things that don't get advertised, or they don't get put into the bulletin, or they don't get put into the newsletter. But those are people who are saying, "I'm willing to be a part of ministry and to serve in these capacities." capacities, whether it's recognized or not, because I see a greater call for the kingdom growth. And to me, it brings joy to my heart. It encourages me, honestly, because not every situation, not every church ministry has that kind of output and reach. When they see urgent needs, you run to it and you go and be a part of it. And just really, it's a blessing to me, honestly. So
absolutely, because we can be the bottleneck. If we're trying to do every single thing and meet with every individual, there's going to be huge problems. That's why we want to equip the saints for the work of ministry, and so thankful that there's so many of you that's already involved in different ways. So sometimes there's urgent needs among us, and then there's urgent needs outside of us in our community. Just earlier this week, there was a group of godly men that ended up going to a nearby area around 35, 40 minutes away. And there was a church there that has around 12 people in it. 12. And they're running into issues, trying to think through how to reach out to the community. They have a faithful, incredible pastor that's been with them for about 6 months. They've got some other issues in regards to just their meeting space. And so those godly men came around and were looking to try to help them in some practical ways, but also to let you know of another urgent need that you can be praying for us about is the Hispanic church. You probably remember a couple months ago, Pastor Luis came and preached here, Iglesia Sublime Gracia, right?
Amazing Grace Baptist.
There you go. And but they're running into a bind too. They're trying to figure out how to make ends meet and renting the space where they're at right now. And so we're involved trying to talk to some other churches in Simpsonville and even directly outside to see if there can be a partnership both between the Hispanic church and also another church to share resources, to share their building, to share some rent in order to see the gospel flourish and continue to go forward. But it's going to require radical collaboration. Once again, if we're going to reach not just across the street, but into this county and across into the country and also into the city of Louisville, we're going to have to get innovative. We're going to need the Lord to give us wisdom, to open up doors, to see how we can do things a little bit different. Maybe even, really, it's not different. It's really the same, going back to what Paul was telling Titus to do. And so what we want to do is just extend an invitation to you all to be praying that the Lord would continue to help us be a church that works. Every individual, whatever you're gifted in, whatever time you have, man, once again, God equips the called, right? He doesn't call the equipped. And so what next step is God calling you to take? Now, some of you, this may be your first time coming to church, and you're like, what is going on? I don't understand this thing. And really, before you can radically collaborate with Christians, you need to become one. And the way you become one is by meeting Jesus. We want to introduce you to him. We want you to know Christ and be able to join in his mission to make him known, both from here, there, to everywhere. And so the way that you can do that is to know that Jesus came and he paid a price for your sin that you committed, dying on the cross where you deserve to be, just like all of us. And the great thing is, he not only died there and was buried, but he rose again 3 days later. And if anyone were to make him the Lord of your life, man, you confess him as Lord, believe that God raised him from the dead, he promises you to not only forgive you, to wipe your slate clean from all that sin, but to also come and live within you, to give you power to collaborate with others. And so, let's stand and let's take those next steps together.